I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is Project Architect 2. Now, a few episodes ago, I ended up using the Cut Paste tool to essentially cut a section out of the bumble zone and paste it right here in the base, which gives us a really cool sort of vibe off of the room here, which is our research facility. So essentially, it's like stepping almost into another dimension, which is pretty darn cool. Now, today we're going to be diving into Ars Nouveau, and we're going to be getting into cooking very soon. So I had another idea. What about if I strip, for example, a section of this awesome stronghold that we have and paste it into the base? Now, that section of the stronghold is pretty darn cool, and I have that section set up right here. So let's go ahead and turn the lights on and walk through, and this is what I'm talking about. This section right here is a massive dining table, but this is actually more than this. It's tons of working space for Ars Nouveau. I want to actually utilize this entire room and paste it in our base, and it's pretty darn cool. There's a sleeping quarters, and there's also a cooking area. So notice this sleeping quarters, which is pretty darn neat, but over here, there's even more. Now, I've tried to go through and remove as many spawners as I can, but look at this cooking section. This is going to be great for getting into some cooking stuff very, very soon, which is going to be needed for our EMC automation section. Now, here's where my challenge starts. I don't actually know what these sort of limitations are for that cut paste tool. Is it going to be capable of selecting an area this large and all of these blocks? Well, we're about to find out. Now, in order for me to be able to do this properly, I want to make sure that I'm selecting it at the right position. So I think right here is a good position to start with, and this is going to be at 398 on our XYZ value, on our Z value here. So 398, I need to write these coordinates down. Now, in knowing that value actually gives me a good indicator of a start position. So that means I should be able to go over here, and I also know that my Y value was 16, and I need to go down to at least Y level 15. So I think I guess I could kind of mine a hole, for example, over here and into the wall, and just mine out down until I get to like Y level 15 right here. And then I just need to keep walking forward until I reach that position, which is going to be that 398. And so this position right here is going to have to be the start position. So I just simply need to right click, and that sets my first position. And then I can get out of here and go ahead and put the blocks back in place. I now need to find out the height. So this is going to be very important. And I also need to find the height value, which is going to be, I believe, right here. And also the depth of the wall on this side. So going back one, just like this, should be my value where I'm currently standing. And so that's going to give me a good indication when I go over here and I go on the outside of this. I now know how high up I actively need to mine, which is going to be at Y level 52. And then I also need to know how far in this direction I actually need to go, which is going to equal 457. So now if everything is correct, I should be able to shift right click on this position. And now this entire shape is now sorted out. Oh boy. And we should be able to cut this out of existence. But this is kind of crazy. This is a humongous area to have this done to. So I am going to close the door to make sure that comes with it. And I guess, moment of truth and seeing if it's even possible, we hit the cut button and hope that we don't crash. Okay, so here we go. We have actually hit a max size. So this is something that I was a little bit worried about. I was like, man, will I be able to actually cut or copy this? And judging by that, yeah, it's not going to be possible unless I do this in sections. Okay, so hear me out on this one. So essentially what we've just done is we've allowed ourselves to now copy this here. So if I go to that cut, I'll right click here, and then I just need to go to that top position that I just found. And let's see if cutting this in half is going to work. It may still be too big, unfortunately. And I think this is already set up, right? We already have that top corner selected. So let's head back now and let's see if I stand here, can I cut half of the building? And we are just ever so slightly over. So what I've done is I've cut off one of the sides of the rooms And so now this should hopefully work. If I set the size here, that is going to cut off a huge section of the side of the build. And it's going to cut this entire bit off. But that also includes all of the like stone and stuff that would come with it. So with that, this should be half of the build whenever we do actively cut this. And by doing this, oh boy, I'm kind of worried. This is going to cut the entire thing out of existence. It isn't copying it. It's actively cutting it. Here we go. And it is cutting all of those blocks and storing it. So this means we actually need to take it back over to our base once this is fully done. And we then need to paste this in to our base. And cool thing is we'll know exactly where this is because the corner will be the exact start point of this entire base. I will say though, this is insane. Watching this just cut all of this out of existence. And what it's going to do in our base is it's going to delete everything that's in its way whenever it pastes all of these blocks back in. This is so cool. Oh, interesting. While doing this, we've actually uncovered a secret room, it looks like. But that is all getting included in this. And I think there we go. It's now stored it. So underneath the paste settings, we can already see like what it's actually going to be pasting in. Now, something to note, we are facing in the southern direction. So when we go to rotate this, we need to make sure what direction everything is facing. But let's go put this in our base. Now, I need to keep in mind that our base direction is going to be east, that we want it to be facing in. So I actually need to go ahead and get this laid out here and rotate it until it's rotated in the correct direction. Oh boy, that is a thing that it is doing. Okay, that's not exactly where we want it. Let's rotate again. This is a very laggy process. This is like as crazy as this gets right here. Oh man, this is a lot of blocks. This is pushing this thing to its absolute limits, I believe. Okay, so this is the position that we want it in right here. So right here is that center position. So I just need to grab this. Let's lower the Y value. And we don't have to do anything else except now I'm going to set the position here. We want it to go one away like that. Let's anchor it. And then I shouldn't see anything else. We should just be able to paste. Oh boy. And let's paste. I just right click and it's all going to start building out. Oh my goodness. Slowly but surely. Replacing this whole area, putting the doorway in. Oh, this is going to be glorious. Oh, we can already see everything starting to expand. This should auto clear the water out and everything. This is just, it's too good. This is absolutely amazing that it can do this. I don't even think Dyer realizes how amazing of a tool that Dyer has created. It's too good. And just like that, it is all officially pasted in. That is absurd. I will have to do a lot of cleanup of, for example, gravel and stuff because it doesn't seem to delete the gravel, especially if it's falling from the ceiling. But it's all here. Everything is moved. All the decorations, everything. So now I just got to grab the other side and I'll also copy over that kitchen. So now that I'm back, I have this section copied. Oh man. And this is the other section. Oh boy, this takes a lot of power too out of this thing. Gotta realize this thing holds 5 million RF and it literally just took all of that to create this. Oh, this is absolutely ridiculous. So now with all of this in, it's honestly time to decorate. I can't just leave this by itself. I actually want to incorporate some Ars Nouveau features into this to definitely make this area feel more magical. Now, this is going to contain cooking stuff and also Ars automation. And can you believe this is at our base? This was just at the Stronghold. This is now in our base. Like, that is just what I want. It feels like you're stepping into another dimension, honestly. It's so grand. But now these upper areas, I am prepping to put in some glowstone. And then what I'm going to do is behind the, or in front of the glowstone, I'm going to be utilizing source gem blocks. Now these are EMCable, so it's perfect for this. You can use them for decoration. We're also going to be utilizing them in our automation soon. So now this is absolutely glorious. Oh, all this stuff already. Now, my idea is to, for example, have some automation happening, and I want kind of beams of source to be transferred through this area from the Ars Nouveau mod. And so I did clear out those giant kegs that were over here, those brewing barrels, and this is going to be spaces where we will be doing that automation. Now, because I looted early on, I'm actually able to bypass a ton of the early grind for Ars Nouveau. And I totally recommend looting around, as you will find source gems, especially in the end. So if you start this after the end, you're going to be set. And because this has EMC value, it really saves a whole lot of automation that we would have had to have done otherwise. So what exactly does this mean? Well, this means we can jump directly into source production right away. And some of the first things we're going to need to make is source stone. That is going to help us get started with this. This also has EMC. So when I was sort of putting this pack together, I only wanted to leave certain things with EMC, source stone being one. I wanted to make sure that a decorative block that's also functional has EMC, and also that the process of making source gems, it is pretty tedious. And so it having EMC is honestly pretty nice. So that way you can kind of focus on more of the later tier stuff. Now onto the process of generating source, which is one of the first things that we actually need to do. And one of the best ways could be coming directly from your mob farm. A Vitalic source link is a great way to actually just start generating a decent amount right off the bat. So all you're going to need is a little bit of gold, and you can place this right next to your mob farm. It does look like I need a little bit of melon. I'm surprised I don't have any. I mean, I guess that makes sense. It's all stored in EMC, but yes, the Vitalic source link, very, very nice thing to have. Let's go ahead and just make one for right now. And we can place this next to our source jar, and we can place this in the overworld right next to our major mob farm, the one that's doing the most, right? Because this is going to work off of mobs essentially being killed, and it will detect that, and it should generate source once that happens. So it should. There it goes. And it's now starting to fill. Now, this is a great way to at least get started, but I want to utilize something interesting and also utilize my space and lava to use this space to generate a ton of source and have multiple different places that will be generating it, because we're going to need a lot of source, I do believe, for if I do plan on automating all of this. So I think what I want to do is utilize these awesome pillars. And I think this would be pretty cool to have this, for example, middle section cleared out, right? Because this looks like it is attached, right? And if I clear this out by, let's, for example, do the 3x3 small square. If I clear this out here, that actually looks amazing. Even though it's not connected, whenever we get the source production in here, it's going to make it look like some sort of magic energy is holding that up. Now, I have a huge plan for these towers here. Essentially, I want to use a volcanic source link, but I don't want to use like coal or the logs, which can produce, like blazing archwood can produce a lot of source, but those are going to cost me EMC over time. So it's going to be consuming for my EMC, and I don't really want to do that just yet. So what I want to do is utilize what's free to me right now, which is lava. And this is a really fun automation that also shows how powerful modular routers can get. So let's actually do this. Now, unfortunately, modular routers, for some reason, cannot click into this Ender energy tank. And or the Ender tank right here. So what I want to do is I want to just pipe some of this lava into a regular basic fluid tank. And so I'm going to go ahead and get that placed in. It needs to go down here. And then I should be able to take, for example, like a Mekanism tank and place that in. And then I just got to get this pulling and sending lava into this tank. That's working just fine. And we should be able to easily access that in the future. Now, I'm going to go ahead and place down a modular router. And what's going to make this so powerful is this can click on this tank and pull buckets of fluid out. So the way we can do this is just simply by placing an activator module in here. And if I put a bucket in here, it should, by default, like actually once we configure the down, for example, it's going to be placed on the down, we should notice that if it's an empty bucket, it should pull lava into that empty bucket. So that's pretty straightforward. There it went. But technically, this on its own is not actually working the way we want it to work. Instead, what we want is we want this to be in whitelist mode, and we want to have a empty bucket in here. So that way it's only going to click when there's an empty bucket in the buffer. Otherwise, it's going to constantly click and try to fill and empty. And this is a pretty interesting way of using that activator module. Now, I also want an arcane pedestal, and I'm going to place that directly on top. And this is actually what's going to allow the bucket to be placed on and allow our volcanic source links to consume the lava. They need to consume the fuel directly adjacent to them off of the pedestals. And this is the point where our pulling and sending modules that allow us to interact with the inventories of things are going to come into play. And the regular Mark 1s, these allow you to pull from directly connected machines that are connected to the modular router. The higher tier ones allow you to go wireless, but we're going to be fine with just the ones connected directly. Now let's start off with, let's just say that we have the item now in here, and we want to send it. So we're going to use a sender module to send to the pedestal. Well, we only want to send up, and we only want to send a full lava bucket. So we want to make sure we filter the lava bucket when it is full and make sure it only sends that. So what's going to happen if we put this in here, it should send it like that into the pedestal. Now our next card, which is the puller, is going to say, okay, well, once that bucket is empty, we also want to pull from the top. But this, we need to only pull empty buckets back into the buffer, and that essentially generates our loop, because the modular router essentially loops through these cards right here. So as soon as that bucket of lava gets consumed, it is going to send it back down, re-pick up a new bucket of lava, send it back up, and the whole loop restarts again. So let's go ahead and place in our volcanic source links. These are going to be connected just like this on the sides. Perfect. And you can see these are actually consuming, but they don't have anywhere to send mana to just yet. And that's where I'm going to have them send to these jars that are up here. And that should start filling all of these source jars. And later on here in a minute, we're going to allow the source to be flowing around the base by using warpers and other things like that. Now I need to do this setup for 10 other locations, and this is going to be our main source, I do believe, of source. Thankfully, whenever we do our configuration cards, we can do our entire stack of them all in one go. So now that all of these are in place, oh, it's time to get started with ours. And the first thing I need to do is set up the arcane core with the enchanting apparatus on top. And then I need to surround the whole thing here with some pedestals that allow us to send items to it. And now I think for this, I'm just going to wrap them around like so. And I'm actually going to automate this immediately with modular routers. And the way I'm going to do that is by placing one right here and then placing a barrel. Now this barrel is going to be connected to the face, and so I'm going to use a puller module to make sure just to pull all of the contents of this barrel into the buffer slot. Now I want to send out of the modular router here, and so I make sure that our distributor module is set to transfer out of router, and we can set it to round robin. That's absolutely fine. But then I need to go through and I need to select all of these slots right here to make sure we have all those slots selected. And that means this will now take items out of the buffer and fill all of these slots. We just got to be careful like what items we put in here. And then of course I can't forget to put some speed upgrades to make this incredibly fast. And I want this set up because this is how we're going to make our source relays and start to upgrade them. For right now, I can make regular source relays, but for example, a splitter, this is going to require quartz and lapis. So I'll take the quartz and the lapis. And if I divide this up so that we have 4 here and 4 here, if I place them in the barrel, they automatically get distributed into this and it's already ready to go. The only thing I need to do now is to just right click on here, and that starts the beautiful auto crafting process. Oh man. And yes, I can extend the auto crafting even further. So this is just regular crafting, of course, but I can actually auto send items into this and auto pull items out. So here in a little bit, we'll probably end up hooking this up to our applied energistic system. So yeah, you know what? Let's actually hook this up to our applied energistic system. And I've never really shown how to actually automate this fully with a storage system such as applied energistics. So let's go ahead and do this. Now, there's a lot of thinking that goes into this process. For one, I need to make sure that this, for example, can receive items automatically, in which it does. But we also need to make sure that if we pull items out, it's not going to just pass right through. So a couple of ways we can test this is with a pipe. And so we can just use a regular item pipe on this side and an item pipe over here. Now, an interesting thing about this will not automatically accept an item unless these items down here have automatically or already been in. So the recipe will not allow you to send into here. So essentially what we would need is we would need a modular router that fills all of this first and then sends the final item after that's all done. So it's a lot to sort of think about, and we can do this with applied energistics, and thankfully we can prevent AE from over sending. And I think out of all kinds of autocrafts you can do, this has to be one of the most complicated types of autocrafting that you can do with any mod, in my opinion. So let's think about this. I need to send some items. So the way we do that is with a pattern provider, just like so. Actually, you know what? I'm going to send the pattern provider. I'm going to make it a full block, and I'm going to have that connected to this barrel right here. And then I just need to connect my cables to it. So this is going to be our sender. And so what I'll do is I'll place down a modular router, and this is going to auto pull the items in, and then it's going to send those items through here. And we'll worry about how that gets situated here in a moment. Now, the receiver is going to pull the finished product out of the enchanting apparatus, and I need that to then send the items back into the pattern provider. So I'll go ahead and place that here for right now, but just keep in mind, this is going to be pulling, and it's going to be wirelessly pulling and also wirelessly sending back into our provider. Now for this, I can still utilize my distributor module, and this is going to be pretty nice as it's going to allow me to set this as a first in our list of things to do. So it should run through here first and should hopefully work in that regard. Now I am going to need another sender module. So let's go to modular routers and let's see, sender MK2, right? So this is going to allow me to send, and I just need to select where I want it to send. So I'm just going to say that side, and that's going to be fine. So this should allow me to send certain items. Now I may have to specify specifically what those items are, but we'll find out whenever we actually get this up and running and start testing automations. So as of right now, items go into the barrel, and inside of this crafter, we'll set this to only push crafting ingredients when the insert's done. No, what we'll do is we'll leave this blocking mode alone, and we'll go right here and we'll say until primary crafting result has returned. So this will only send one at a time, and it will wait until the pattern provider has received the other product. So this is going to be the best way, I think, to limit our recipes by only sending one at a time, one batch at a time inside of the barrel here. Now for our receiver, we need a puller module that's going to pull the item out of the finished whenever it's done, and then we want it to send back. Now here's where I might have to filter things, because I don't know in this setup if it will automatically pull out even if the product is not done. I'm very unfamiliar with that. Like I said, I've never automated this before. So this is kind of new waters for me too. I understand how the process is supposed to work, I do believe. But yes, now we need another sender module, and it needs to be an MK2. This by default can send up to 24 blocks away, which is kind of nice. So all I need to do is select this pattern provider, and that should take the item in the buffer and send it back in. Okay, so one of the first things that I would like to autocraft to try this out is going to be like a source relay splitter. So to set up this autocraft, we have to keep in mind that this is going to require this item as well. And I don't know how this is actually going to sort this. So as you can see right here, it placed this item first. I don't know 100% if that's going to matter too much, but we can try it out by default and see if this is going to work. So it has all of those items. We place this in, and then what we need to do is we need to do a request for this. So let's go ahead and try this out. Let's go into Ars, and it should be right here, and we'll say start. And will it send those items? I do not know. Oh, that's right. We do need to move this, and we actually need a puller module that is pulling from the down to pull the buffer items in. And notice right here, this is the primary issue that I knew I was probably going to have. Notice it placed those on the pedestal first. And this is where, like I said, this becomes a much more complicated craft. Now, I think what we can do to maybe prevent this is by moving this source relay to a lower level in the craft. So if we take the source relay, we can place that here. Now it should send these items first in the list, because I think it runs left to right and then moves to the next level and so on and so forth. So it should send these first. These should be the first to be looped inside of the inventory, and this should be the last thing that tries to get sent. At least, so I hope. So I'm going to place this in, And now if I do the request, that might solve the problem, in which it does. So this is why I said there's a lot of steps to thinking about how this works, and you kind of need to know a lot about how these storage mods actually function in the first place. Notice it sent the required thing back and sent it back in, and we've essentially automated this. All we have to do now is make sure that the item that gets sent into the apparatus is the last thing in the list. And by the way, just to demonstrate that we can craft more than one, let's, for example, do 3 of them, and we'll notice it'll send that, and nothing gets sent in the barrel because this is currently waiting until this has fully finished and sent the item back. This is what makes also applied energistics very, very powerful. And there it goes. Now, another thing I'm going to need to be able to link these source splitters and be able to actually move around our source is I'm going to need a wand. And so this wand, very simple to put together, but it is going to be one of the most powerful tools, in my opinion, in the Ars, of course, outside of the book, which we actually haven't made the spell book yet. And I don't even think we're going to really need to make it because there is one actually in the Stronghold. And voila, we now have the Dominion wand ready to go. And so what I want to do is I want to start now linking the source here, and I want to have this sent to a source splitter. And so the source splitter will actually pull from all of these jars and allow us to send this source wherever we need it to go. So I think this is going to work out perfect. I have right here a drawer. This is going to have a puller in here. There's some utility slots. So what I can do is I can have the ingredient pulled out once we have one generated. And I can put that in the filter slot here. And later on, we can have ourselves a range upgrade that'll go inside of a controller that should be able to see this entire room and every single drawer that's connected to it. At least this is my idea. And then we should be able to get our source directly sent to jars that are going to be right over here, that are going to be somewhere in this. Now, for right now, I just got to get this started. And the way that these work is pretty cool. So if we look at ours, we have these essences that we need to generate. And there's several of them. There's 7 of them to be exact. And later on, we're going to need to actually use these imbuement chambers to make other things. But for right now, we can go ahead and just mainly focus on getting our self essences up and running. Now, these items that are required here are not consumed. These are actually just items that need to be set on to these platforms, which, yes, you can take those platforms and turn them flat and place them up against the wall. And that is what I'm doing here. Now, most of these items are pretty common. And so I just, for example, need to get like a bucket of milk and fermented spider eyes. They're just like a bunch of common vanilla style items right here. And now with all of the ingredients set in place, at least for these basic ones, we should be ready to go. I do have one on the back. There are 7 of them. So it does make a little setup like this a little bit harder to set up. But I think on the backs, I'm probably going to have some other automations, and I have the faces of these to set up down the road. So I need to get myself a source jar over here. Now these will run on their own. And I could probably go ahead and get that process started. And the way I want to do this is I want to have a modular router. I can go ahead and place that right here. And I'm going to use an EMC link down on the bottom. And I think I can connect. Let's see. Let's do ours. I want to put a source gem. And what I want is I want this to be set to a source gem and be able to pull the source gems out with a pipe. So I am going to need a pipe, and I want those to send up out of here like that. And there we go. We have the source gems going in. And then I need a distribution module, or a distributor module. And I just need to have this clicked onto here. And I need to make sure the mode is set to transfer out of router. That should be fine. The interesting thing about using this is if you're flying, it doesn't work so well. So right here, I just need to make sure I land on these spots before I set where these are going to send. And I definitely want to make sure round robin is enabled for this. So I've got to get all of these linked up, and then we should be ready to rock and roll and start producing some stuff. Now, I know by default, this has a range of 24, but I don't think it's going to be able to reach all the way over here. And that's where you can actually upgrade the modules themselves. So if I go ahead and make, for example, some range upgrades, those actually can go inside here, and you can modify the individual modules themselves. And so now this has a range of 44, and we can increase that depending on if we're going to need it or not. So I think on this, we don't have to worry about any special cards. We just have that in here. If I put this in, that's now going to send And yes, it is far enough and does reach. Now, I do want to prevent the lasers from shooting everywhere. And to do that, we can put in some muffler upgrades. And I think the max muffler upgrades makes this completely silent, but also removes the lasers on there. And then the only other upgrade we're definitely going to need is a camo upgrade. So you can shift right click on the thing you want to camouflage it as. And there we go. We now have a modular router that is 100% disguised and is now filling this with these essences. We may have to upgrade this later on, depending on how fast this gets with the jars. So now that that's done, I can start to kind of manipulate and move around our source. So by utilizing those source splitters, I can link all of these containers into this one splitter. To do that, to have the source splitter pull from inventories, you click on the inventory and then you click on it, and that will bind it to the thing that you want it to be connected to. So there we go. That is all pulling. And now if I want to, for example, send this, I believe I can send this to a source jar that is over here. Now I want to try this out. I should be able to, for example, link here. I think this will reach that jar. Now to be able to pull from here, we right click and then we right click onto this to send to that location. So now what we should see is this pulling out and sending into this to accelerate it. Oh, that is so nice, actually. Well, I think now I'm just about ready to go. So I have my frame drawer right here. I just put the utility upgrade in here, and that is going to now pull the items in. And I do recommend locking these, and you can do that very easily. I think actually the quest, if we go ahead and try the quest out here. Ooh, I'm kind of, what'd I get? I got a diamond pickaxe from that. Oh man. Yeah, it should definitely take all of the quests, but I think one of them is actually under storage. Functional storage. Yeah, we already have the configuration tool. So it should be in here, I think. No, I ended up putting it in my backpack. So yeah, definitely want to lock these up just like that. And this is really going to start jump starting. Like it's going to start really ramping up. Because we have the source, it's going to make this incredibly fast. So now for the fun part and linking all of these up together into a storage controller. Now I just did some testing and we can actually increase the range on this controller. And I want to have this connected down here, and I should be able to run some cables underneath the floor that should allow us to connect down into our current wireless connector. So I am going to be using a bus for this, just a regular storage bus. Let's go ahead and get that crafted up. And that's going to make it pretty easy to get in here, and some cables to run that across. Now, the way that these controllers work, we can extend the range on them by shift right clicking and placing an upgrade. And this upgrade here increases the controller's radius by 6 blocks when I do that. And this should be enough. And we can actually see that by using our linking tool and shift right clicking on here. This gives us a visualization of the range that it has. And so long as it is within this range, which it looks like I'm going to have to extend it just a little bit more. And I can do that, by the way, by making a copper upgrade. So I can just make this one right here. And this alone should be able to extend its range enough. That adds even more to it. So now we see that this is now fully encompassed. And so we can add each one of these to the list by right-clicking it. There we go. And any other drawers that we may add in the future in here will all be covered by this. So all of those are now linked to that controller, and we can access all of those storages within our storage bus. It is that simple. And oh, this is so nice. So I'll just go ahead and attach my storage bus, making sure I set the priority to 1. And that way it'll be the first in the list, and then just connect it up. And that should now be online. And we should now see essence in our storage. Now, we just want to sit here and take a moment to appreciate this. It's beautiful, with all of the particles flowing through. And if we fly up, we can see the particles streaming from the top. Oh, it's gorgeous. And with all of this, we now have the foundations of Ars Nouveau ready to go. And this is going to allow us to craft tons of things. We've got to get a book up and running. We got a boss to battle. There's so much still to do that is all going to be wrapped up into this adventure bound section. And this right here is just the icing on the cake, which is going to allow us to craft just about everything that we see here. So if that's something you're looking forward to, be sure to click that subscribe button. If you enjoy episodes like this, where we go above and beyond the typical modded Minecraft and setups, be sure to, of course, click that subscribe button and comment down below. And also, let me know, what do you think of doing stuff like this? Do you think this is a good idea to use the cut paste gadget to bring certain builds from one location to another? I don't know. I think this is fantastic, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. And with that, it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Purity. Thank you so much for your amazing support by choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. I can't thank you guys enough. Thank you all who have clicked that subscribe button, who are maybe new to the channel. You guys mean the world to me, and I thank you all so very much. And of course, I can't thank you enough, but I will say it yet again. As always, thanks for watching. Bye!